Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, the New York Mover. Thanks for joining me, New York Mover.
Thank you for having me.
Right on cue, sip of water. I like this. This is what it's about. All natural.
I waited until the 5-second countdown was up, and then I took the sip of water.
You know what? That's what this is all about. So I got to ask you, I've interviewed a number of people for this, and every single time, I wasn't planning on starting with this, but it's super important when talking about people's hustle and how they get to where they are. And every person has given me a pronunciation of their name, but you said to me that you wanted to be introduced as the New York Mover, which I know is who you are and your persona and everything that I've been inspired by. But what does it mean to you that you've kind of become synonymous with the New York Mover?
I'd like to say there's some like spiritual significance or like some like empowering reason why. The reason why is because when you think of, and I know I'm a little better looking than him, but when you think of The Rock, right? Then it's a joke, obviously. But when you think of The Rock, his whole brand is who he is. So from a marketing standpoint, being known as the New York Mover, like the company name, my name, the brand, everything is all in one. If you think of like 1-800 mattress, it's just very scaled down because The Rock was a better analogy. But, 1-800 mattress was really powerful because you had 1-800 mattress, 1-800mattress.com, 1-800 like the whole. So same thing with The Rock and same thing with the New York Mover and the Hulk, like that whole, everything was, it's an all-in-one.
I see a lot of similarities between you and The Rock, so I'm glad,
right. I am a little bit better looking.
That's whatever. Listen, just for the record, The Rock or Dwayne, whatever you want to be called, if you want to come on, I'm sure that the New York Mover will come back on and we can debate this on air. I'm sure.
And we can go side by side. And see
exactly.
This. Right.
So you are the New York Mover, but take us back a little bit. What do we need to know about your upbringing or your early career that led you to become the New York Mover?
There's failure, there's success, there's failure, there's heartbreak, there's tragedy. There's a lot of everything in what got me to where I am, and God's grace. All of that brought me to a place where I made some decisions this time around when re-entering the moving industry that I was going to do some things that were drastically different than I had ever done or that I had ever heard of being done in the moving industry. So much that it was going to completely reconfigure the way that customer service is handled, the way that pricing is structured, right? And it was a risk, and it turned out to be the best decision that I've ever made.
So I have to believe that there was a point when you made those changes or decided to be different in an industry that, I think that you're very differentiated in. Again, I think that similar to insurance, people probably Google mover near me or ask their neighbor. And that's really what it's about. I had an actual screamer on the street with my neighbor a couple of weeks ago. One of my closest friends who was moving to the house 2 doors over from me. And he used a shady, cheap mover. And I literally, with everything that I had, including the fact that his insurance wouldn't cover the move and I'm his insurance agent, just tell him he's an idiot. And we don't need to get into details of it, but on the way out, they scratched the floor of his old house that he now needs to repair before he can sell it with a heavy
I thought
piece.
You said a screamer.
Screamer. We were screaming at each other, me and my neighbor.
Oh, you and
me
the
and
mover?
Me and my neighbor about him using a mover that was not insured and was shady and was just the cheapest. But I think that a lot of people, it's interesting because people lose sight in your business of the importance of it because they say it's just like a one-time transaction.
Right.
So you decided to be revolutionary. What did that? You had no doubt. You weren't thinking what if this? How did you hustle through that? If I do something different, there's going to be a lot of naysayers and there's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations because I'm going to have to rewrite the script or the path to success.
What comes to me is something I think I saw in a movie yesterday. I forget which movie it was because I watched 2. I watched Burnt, which I think it was called Burnt with, he's a really good looking guy. He played in,
just for the record, the New York Mover is a new father. So his whole brain is foggy for your listeners out there.
He played in A Star Is Born.
I'm like a really bad movie guy.
Well, anyway, I watched Burnt and we watched Silver Lining Playbook, and he was the actor in both of those. And it may have been Silver Lining Playbook, but it made me think of it. But like, one thing that happens when you are going into recovery, if you are having a very deep like a big transition, a big spiritual shift, a big psychological change, a like something huge in your life has to shift in order for you to go from a place where you simply can't stop burning your life to the ground to a place where you have freedom. It's not something that's done through. It is a very large psychological shift, and one of the biggest things that happens is an abandonment of self, an abandonment of beliefs. What fear, right? Casting your fears into the fire, like just kind of a complete abandonment in everything and a trust in something that you can't necessarily put your hand on, but know that your way isn't working. So you're willing to be extremely vulnerable and do something that doesn't feel like it's going to solve the problems in your life that are on fire, but people are telling you it will. So where I'm heading with that is I was in that mindset already when I had seen some amazing things happen for me in my life, that by doing these things that seemed like they were not going to fix any of my problems, completely revolutionized my life. And I took that same approach. I said, I was fearful because obviously, you have financial insecurities and you want to make sure that, you're not going to invest this time and it's going to blow up on you. But I had already put trust and faith in something that I couldn't see or touch, that wasn't actually tangible. And I was like, you know what? If it doesn't work, it wasn't meant to be, And I was like, I really have a feeling that this is the way it should be done. Let me just see. And I had a kind of like a, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work attitude. And, there was some other things that lined up. Like we had it was a pretty good market, even pre-COVID. The couple, a year or two pre-COVID, movers were doing quite well. And then COVID, movers did extraordinarily well. So like a lot of things I believe played into, factored into allowing us to thrive. But ultimately now we're years past COVID or that pandemic time frame, and it's magnificent. The results are magnificent.
I think it's amazing that you took the lessons of recovery and decided to not limit them to just your personal life, but realizing that all of those things parlay into a professional life as well. And I think that it actually goes back to a lot of what we started with, which is if your identity, and that's not a bad thing, but if you're passionate about what you do professionally, then your personal and professional lives have to mix. That doesn't mean that you don't spend time with your wife and children and family. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just amazing to me that you would make a choice to go so far off of what an industry was doing for generations because of something that you discovered in your personal life.
Yeah, I think that that's the key for all areas of success in recovery, in my experience anyway. And I'll elaborate on that. You may have someone, recovery is not just about like not using drugs or alcohol. There's so many other aspects to recovery. For example, you may have somebody who is stopped using drugs and alcohol, but is burning their life down to the ground financially. Can't seem to put $2 together, can't save money, constantly in financial insecurity, working and feels like they're in this rat race, this rats running on a wheel type of situation, rat race. Yeah. And it's very overwhelming and life is not pleasant. And there's in my opinion, right. And I only say my opinion because, you never know someone's financial situation, but there's something missing, I think. And I'm not saying life's going to change. Someone will get rich. Right. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, when you're living, I believe, on a spiritual basis, or when I'm living on a spiritual basis, whether these situations change or my feeling towards the situation changes, one of those two things are going to happen. Right. So I don't have to get to work. I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work. I don't have to pay taxes. I get to pay taxes. It's such a small shift in the way in our perception and the way we think. But like when you're like, oh, like it's tax time and like you have this anxiety and, everything's, and it's like, like it's so overwhelming and, you're thinking about your next bill and all this other stuff. And like somehow you're able to have this psychological shift where it's like, I don't have to pay taxes. I get to, like, I have these problems. Like some people don't even have food to put on their plate. right? Like, so that type of stuff.
I mean, that's really what Keep Hustling is all about. That what I'm trying to do here and learn about, and I believe that every person has a unique story, is that in life, as you said, you there's endless opportunity. And if we look at everything in life as an opportunity, then we might fail at some of those opportunities. We might fall short. Some of them may not work out the way we think they will. But if you're constantly evolving, and not to, steal my punchline or sound corny, but hustling through those moments, then you'll get more at bats. And when you get more at bats, you'll have more success. And when you have more success, you'll see that greater good in your life and everything. So I agree with you. I agree. And I think the taxes example is a great example because you can't pay taxes on money that you don't earn. And so people often, talk about that. We talk about in our business, someone has a big audit because their sales are audited from the previous year for their insurance. And it's like, well, you did 4X your sales from the previous year. That's not most people would like that problem. So I think that
Right.
it's interesting that you say that one of the things that you learned in a life shift is that there's not problems, there's opportunities. And it's just fascinating to me that then you said, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to turn an industry upside down.
Yeah.
Was it scary? Did you ever think maybe this viewpoint is not going to play out in my professional life?
Yeah, I did. And I was $75,000 in debt.
It's a good way to start the hustle.
Yeah, good way to start the hustle. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was $75,000 in debt. And I think that I had said, if it doesn't work, well, let me just back it up. So in abandoning myself or what was ever going on in my life that wasn't working, I turned off the phones. I closed the business. I walked away completely and I focused on recovery. Like I started to build the foundation again from the bottom, as if like I tore down the whole house, pulled out the foundation of the house, and started laying the foundation again was what I had to do with my life. And because I did that, I had already abandoned this fear of what would happen if I stopped working and all this other stuff. And I saw that like my life had gotten better, right? Even though I thought, like, how am I going to, like whatever, I let go of these fears. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at the time. There was a lot of like, again, the stars aligned. There was a lot of benefit to having I don't give a attitude towards it, right? Like, I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust if I do the right thing, it'll all work out. And if it doesn't work out, it wasn't meant to be.
Was there a moment where it clicked for you when you were like, this is actually going to work?
I think even till today, I have imposter syndrome. Like, even till today, I'm just like, things don't go well. And I'm like, you don't have this, but like, you don't have, you're not as good as you think you are. Like,
I think everybody has that, but it's saying like, meaning like when let's take one example. What do you think is the biggest difference or the biggest change that you made in the way you guys do moving and the way everyone else does? I know there's like a bunch of different things that you guys do that are different, but like, what's the core foundation there?
So I think the most important, and I'll start with that before we even talk about pricing, is the customer service policy. I think we spoke about this, if a move is being conducted and we're billing you $300 an hour or $400, let's say $350 an hour, and we're not giving you $400 an hour worth of work, like you don't feel we're giving you more than we're charging you, you tell us, we stop the clock. We start working for free now at this point. So like, find me a mover that says to you, if you're not happy with the work we're doing, we'll stop billing you and start working for free. Right? Like if there is one, I'd like to see it.
Right. Not we'll stop and we'll walk off. We're gonna finish it for free.
You're going to address what is bothering you about the service that you're being provided, where you don't feel we're exceeding your expectations, and we are going to make every single attempt to fix that situation, right? And until you say, yes, you fixed the situation, we're not going to be billing you, right? It's a bold statement. What if somebody decides like, hey, I want to be not a good person, right? And
have you had people who like you feel?
I had it for the first time 3 weeks ago, and I kid you not, a real estate agent in the real estate industry.
So meaning like most people, I assume if they complain, like you just dropped my, whatever, your guy just put a hole in my wall. You're like, we're going to solve that or whatever. But like, so for the first time, and how long have you been doing this the new way?
For about 4 or 5 years now.
Just curious how many moves that is around.
Maybe 4,000 or 5,000 moves.
So 5,000 moves, and for the first time, you think you met a scammer on this policy?
Well,
I have new
no,
faith in humanity.
no, no,
If
no.
that's the case, I have new faith in humanity.
So we only started using this policy. We only started implementing this policy in the last year to year and a half, right? We didn't have this policy before. We had our pricing structure. We had our video chats. We had a lot of things that we did revolutionary that were very drastically different than we did in the past. But this customer service policy evolved from a statement of the customer is always right and will always fix it to an actual procedure for how we handle it.
That's the moment I want to talk about. That's the moment I was asking about right there. Like, what made you decide I have this idea, it's going to revolutionize customer service, and it's going to actualize the customer feeling that they're getting the best service and that they're right and that they're getting what they deserve. And then I'm going to take a huge financial risk to do it.
So it's not as much of a huge financial risk as you'd think, and I'll tell you why. If a customer is unhappy about something, even if they're wrong, and you wait till the end of the move to discuss it, the move is over. It is now whatever the customer feels the right thing to do would be versus whatever the mover thinks the right thing to do would be. And ultimately, if you're in a service business, like I said, when I decided I was going to change things, revolutionize the way I had been doing things, I made a decision that the customer was always right. That was back 4 or 5 years ago. So no matter what, based on that philosophy, we're going to pay. You're going to pay. So if you look at it differently, it's a double-sided coin, because on one hand, by addressing it during the move, by checking in during the move, by having the foreman and our office, our move concierge, call and say, hey, are we exceeding your expectations?
You do that mid-move?
We check every hour. Every hour. The foreman or the office is somebody's asking. It gets to the point where the customer's like, if you ask me again, I'm going to kill you. Joking around, right?
Right. That's my complaint. My complaint is, don't ask me anymore. I'm moving. Just leave.
Right. No. So we do. Look, if it's a 3-hour move, so it's going to take us an hour to load. We might ask one time while we're loading, and one time when we're offloading, if an hour drive in between. How many times can you really ask on a 3? So maybe in that case you ask twice. But if we're loading, if it's a 9-hour day and we're at a customer's house loading up for 4 or 5 hours, that at least 4 of those hours, because maybe that 5th hour doesn't allow it, but approximately every hour we are checking in with the customer. Are we exceeding your expectations, right? Because the moment they say no, right, and we remind them at all points, even when we check in with them, the moment we are not exceeding your expectations, do not wait till the end of the move. Don't. The end of the move is over. The move's over. Let us know immediately. So when you keep that dialogue with the client, they have it in their mind. Okay, they want to know feedback, right? And we check in with them. Hey, don't forget, we're exceeding your expectations. Yes, okay. Please don't forget. Let us know immediately. So there's that open communication and line of dialogue where if it happens, which movers don't want to work for free, so they're busting their ass to make sure that they don't have to, right? Where that opportunity presents itself, and the client, if they say something, we have that moment that we found out that they weren't, not much time has elapsed since the last hour. So, okay, what is it that we could do differently in this situation that we weren't doing right before, that we were doing right before? Well, I feel like the guys were moving a little quicker, or I didn't see, I saw 3 guys, now I only see 2. Right. So we'll take the customer downstairs. We'll show them, hey, there's a guy loading on the truck. Right. One of the guys now is stacking stuff onto the truck. Oh, I didn't realize it. No, you guys are great. Sorry. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. But you have that open line of communication where you simply do not allow a customer to get to the end of the move. It's impossible for them to get to an end of the move and not have an incredible moving experience, because you're removing that from there, even the possibility of that happening.
Yeah, so I would say that people probably complain less when they know that you're checking in. Like, there might have been something that they would think wasn't like 100% before, but they're like, I know they're invested. They're not spacing out. They're not,
They care. Most people, especially in the world of moving, having faith in humanity. You said that is funny, but I think people are inherently good. As much as there is evil in this world and there are bad people, I think that we fundamentally know the difference between right and wrong, right? Like everyone knows, maybe not a sociopath, but like, Like a legit clinical sociopath might not, or might not even care. I think even a sociopath still knows, but just
100%.
doesn't care, right? So I think that being said, like somehow I think God instilled in us this understanding of what's right and wrong, and majority of people are good, but when someone feels like they're being taken advantage of, and I can say from my own experience, if I feel like you're taking advantage of me, I'm like, all right, I'm going to one up this guy, like I'll show his, so a lot of these situations where people act out in certain ways that get perceived as like a lack of faith in humanity is often because their perception is different, maybe different than reality, right? But just different than your perception. So we want to see that perception immediately, and we want to fix it. And look, if you give out a half an hour, if we stop the clock and we work for a half an hour for free while we're fixing the situation, we check in with them 20 minutes after they told us, hey, did we fix it? Or yeah, you guys fixed it. Great. Okay, we're going to turn the clock back on. Okay, no problem. Well, you gave a half an hour. But I can assure you that if you continued working like that, where the customer felt they were not getting what they were paying for, and you waited till the end of the move, and then they were upset, you would have had to give back an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, right? So, like, by doing that, there's this double-edged coin where you are providing like a service where people are like, holy, like I have to hire these guys. Like, there is no way for me to not have an incredible. They will be the best moving experience as long as they honor this policy. At the same token, you're doing that, you're also minimizing the potential for loss. As far as your
I know.
bottom line.
I like the fact that it's calculated in that not only the customer wins because they get the best experience, but I love. I didn't think about it that way. I love the fact that also it's probably the best thing for you financially. Like I can't imagine. I never thought of it this way because I guess it's just not my personality. But I can't imagine people getting to the end of the move and saying, "No, by the way, you messed X, Y, and Z. We agreed on $5,000. Here's four."
So imagine when someone, if someone feels like couple things didn't go right that they didn't like, and they feel like it took, they look at a bill and they go, you know what, I didn't like those things they did, and that bill looks really high, right? Like, no matter how much time you put in there, or how much blood, sweat, and tears, or how many hours were invested, I, as a consumer, would say, okay, using this opportunity to get X amount of dollars off the move because I didn't like what happened before, and this is a bill that's not really everything. I would have liked to pay less. So I'm going to pay less and use that opportunity. You're kind of disarming them from that.
I feel like when bad things happen, like the natural bad things, not people taking advantage, like a guy didn't show up. There were supposed to be three guys and there were two, or something breaks or something happens throughout the course of a move that is actually a problem, not just a perceived problem like, oh, there were three guys here. They didn't realize that one was on the truck, but there is actually a problem. Like you did do X, Y, and Z incorrectly. That it's also disarming because it's like, okay, we're going to deal with that right now. And therefore, when we come to the end, you're not going to have a checklist of you scratched my door on the way out. You did it. You're like having that communication makes it.
Well, I have to say, just for transparency purposes, New York State, New Jersey, the Federal Department of Transportation are all very serious about insurance. So we have to be careful when we talk about insurance where we loop that in. So if something were to get damaged, right, there is a claims process, and the customer can fill out a claim form at the end of the move. It doesn't, and they're made aware of that at the beginning. They're signing a piece of paper about that. That's no surprise to them. So it really doesn't come into play where someone would say, okay, you're not exceeding my expectations, meaning we're not giving you more per hour than we're charging you for, because it's a separate issue. So
No, but what I'm saying is when you have that communication, they know about that and it doesn't come to, I'm not filling out your claim form. I'm just going to withhold X number of dollars
absolutely.
because the whole experience is partnered. It's not, a service provider and consumer.
You can do a lot more in the world of customer service if you remind people that you're playing on the same team. Like, we are billing you per hour, but we are getting paid where we want to get paid per hour for the work that we do. Our job is to bust our to get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible for you. Right? We didn't take $50 an hour off the hourly rate, which was a good portion of our profits, and now we feel like we're slighted in a certain way. Not that we would do that, but I wouldn't take $50 an hour off my hourly rates because I don't even want to work at 100% efficiency and feel slighted. I just don't want to, if we're not getting paid at the rates that the best way I could explain it, I heard somebody say this many years ago, I can't give you a 20% discount on the rates because I can't give you a 20% discount on the quality of service we provide. We're going to provide you 100% service, so we're going to charge you 100% of the pricing we provide.
That is keep hustling.
Yeah.
That's it. And it all works out. That's amazing. I can spend all day talking to you. I love the fact that your personal journey led into your professional journey, that you've seen the success, that it's played out, that doing the right thing wins. And I think that people oftentimes forget that. And this is talking to you is an incredible reminder, not only my faith in humanity, but in my faith of that doing the right thing. Sometimes, even when you look at the competition, you look at others and you're like, the creep of doubt, that imposter thing creeps into the back of your head, that you are doing the right thing.
I have to thank you.
Uh-oh.
No, you gave me some really great advice. I don't remember how many days it was I spoke to you before she gave birth, but you gave me that advice about getting a long enough a cord for the phone to keep my phone charged. And there was interestingly enough, in the room that we went to once the child was born, there were cords all over. But in the birthing room, there was a outlet right behind her bed, and it would have not made it to where I was sleeping overnight, and I would have been without a phone or a dead phone.
NY Risk Advisor, full service operation here. So I'm glad that we could help that. We have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite timely or lifetime inspirational quote. What is that for you?
It's a poem called The Man in the Glass. When you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it is a man's father, mother, or wife whose judgment upon him must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in life is the man staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end, and you've passed your most dangerous, difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but the final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass.
I have never heard that before, and that is...
I love it.
Absolutely incredible. And, this above all to thine own self be true. I think that's amazing. And your journey, I can say, not that I'm any great person, but I can imagine I can imagine that your wife and your baby see the man in the glass and are very proud. And I'm honored to call you a friend. That's it.
I'm far from I am human like the rest of us. And I make I'm judgmental. I can get angry. I can get impatient. I can get, I can become dishonest when I'm very fearful, just like every other human being. But I do have more of an awareness about it now. More an awareness and more of a attempt to have restraint on those things that are character defects of mine. Whereas before, I only saw you as the problem. I never really saw myself as the problem, but you're a great. We had quite a good conversation last time. I think you're a hell of a guy.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on, the New York Mover. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good, and always keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.